fellow citizens, events in Iraq have now reached the final days of decision.
March 17th, Bush goes on TV and issues an ultimatum.
Saddam Hussein and his sons must leave Iraq within 48 hours.
March 19th, American Special Ops in the early hours move into Iraq from the west.
On my orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance.
The American war planners have targeted 55 of Saddam's top guys, including Saddam himself. They hand this list out as a deck of cards. Each card's got a different guy and his face on it.
Take this guy. Taste for the theatrical, like you. Leaves a calling card.
I'll look into it.
Early on March 19th, American intelligence thought they had found the ace in the deck, Saddam Hussein, in a compound south of Baghdad called Dora Farms.
A CIA source in Baghdad claimed he'd seen Saddam enter a secret bunker.
Holy cow, the war could be over before it started. So we fire off a bunch of bunker buster munitions and cruise missiles right at the target.
We got him. That's it. War's over.
Oops, turns out Saddam wasn't there at all. 15 civilian casualties. Meanwhile, there's an amphibious assault in the southeast of Iraq to secure the oil fields by the Gulf. March 21st begins the aerial bombing campaign known ever after as Shock and Awe. The first bombs began to scream over Baghdad, all captured on TV, of course. The talking heads at CNN did not even try to hide how giddy they were.
Listen to this, Jamie. These are shots being fired now in Baghdad. I want our viewers to listen in.
This opening salvo killed as many as 6,000 Iraqis. Absent from that list of casualties were any of the 55 top Ba'ath Party guys passed around on our little deck of cards. So entering Iraq from the south, the U.S. 5th Army Corps would drive to Baghdad with a left hook from west of the Euphrates, and the Marine Corps would attack from the east of the river. The British would handle Basra in the south. Saddam and his generals expected a much longer bombing campaign, but the Americans very quickly moved in with the ground forces. Tanks, armored cars, helicopters, they were just driving through the desert. There's a place called Nasiriyah on the banks of the Euphrates, and this was one of the most intense battles in the initial invasion. One unit in the Marine advance sped past everybody and took a wrong turn at Albuquerque, and they sped right into an Iraqi front line. They swing around to escape, and the Iraqi forces overwhelmed them. We thought, especially in the south, that a popular revolt would occur and aid the U.S. advance toward Baghdad.
It didn't happen at Nasiriyah. It didn't happen at other places in the south.
As all this goes on in Baghdad, there's a surreal normalcy as people just, pass militia and army men on their way to go shopping. The broadcast from one particular Ba'ath Party spokesperson, nicknamed Baghdad Bob for his reports on Saddam's imminent victory over the Americans, encapsulated this non-reality in the face of the invaders' advance. On April 4th, the coalition forces got word that Chemical Ali, who was in charge of all the horrible genocidal stuff in the 80s, they got word he was in a house in Basra.
It was very clear to me, both before and during this operation, that the Shia people were terrified of this man.
So F-16s flew over and obliterated the house.
We're watching this video of the attack, and the first weapon comes in, and then the second weapon comes in and strikes the building. And you're able to see bodies like rag dolls flying up into the air. And I'll tell you, we sat there and we were cheering, thinking, yeah, we just got Chemical Ali.
Just like Saddam's supposed bunker in Dora Farms, Chemical Ali was not there, and instead we wiped out 17 innocent people.
Weapons that are being used today have a degree of precision that no one ever dreamt of.
In general, our precision-guided bombs somehow managed to land on a bunch of working-class Shiite neighborhoods. Homes, shops, restaurants. It looked like the aftermath of a hurricane. On March 28th, we hit a market in yet another working-class Shiite neighborhood. Shadid writes, one passerby recalled a 5-year-old with half his face blown off. And at every point, whether it was an American force or a British force in the south or in the middle of the country, the initial layer of the Iraqi military would kind of chip away. But what would come after that would be the Fedayeen Saddam. These were the ragtag militia-type units, the really fanatical guys that were defending their country with their life. And this surprised everybody invading.
They were fearless. They weren't afraid to die. And it was like a human wave attack as they came pushing towards us.
The Fedayeen, they really were ragtag. A lot of them were honestly teenagers.
The fighting was fierce. They had planes and tanks. And all we had were machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, and hand grenades.
And they faced down this giant army with basically just a bunch of guns and grenade launchers.
They fought like heroes. I saw them with my own eyes. They'd run down the street, throw themselves to the ground, put a rocket in the RPG and fire.
The closer American forces got to Baghdad, the more they ran into Saddam's crack troops in the Republican Guard. And south of Baghdad, the U.S. started to move in Apache helicopters, and they descended to pick off tanks and strafe the Iraqi troops. But the Iraqis killed the power grid, which sent those choppers into darkness, and then the resistance blasted everybody from the rooftops.
I can remember seeing an RPG skip across the road in front of us. So I was like, okay, this is for real here. This is bad.
The resistance was real. It was fierce. It was desperate. But eventually the Americans ground the Iraqis down. Fedayeen, the Republican Guard, they all fell to American bullets and shells or retreated and lay quiet to fight another day.